Good evening. I am Dr. Michael Smith, and welcome to my channel. This channel is entitled Shrink Fit, a Psychiatrist's Guide to Life Fitness, and this is where I enjoy speaking about a variety of topics that I think will help us all to have more happy, healthy, and satisfying lives. Before I dive into what I want to talk about tonight, let me just give you a brief introduction to myself. I may have mentioned that I am a board-certified psychiatrist. I have several decades of experience behind me. Presently, I am mostly retired, although I still do a little bit of work, a little bit of consulting work, which I find interesting and keeps me in the game a little bit. I've also recently started a podcast with a colleague, another psychiatrist who enjoys talking about these things. The other podcast is entitled Mind, Mood, and Medicine, and that's a place where two old psychiatrists, myself and my colleague, can talk about a variety of topics that hopefully will be interesting to folks as they get on in life. What I'd like to talk about today, I was reminded of because I took a little jaunt to the grocery store earlier today. And sometimes that can be a difficult experience because people often are tired or ornery or hungry. Traffic may be bad, etc. What I found on my way to the store today was that traffic was indeed pretty crowded. I got to the store and went about my business and found the things that I was interested in. I made a few purchases, and as I was checking out, I was helped by a very friendly young woman from the West Indies, as I recall, she said. A very pleasant accent and very nice attitude. And she made my day a little bit better. And she reminded me of what I've been wanting to talk about for the last little while. And the topic of interest for me tonight is what I've entitled micro-benevolence. Over the last few decades, we've all heard a lot about microaggressions, and I think we've been trained to be sensitive to slights or criticisms or mistreatment from other people. And I suppose there's some utility in that, but I also think it's become a little bit of an issue or a problem. I think too often we may take offense when no offense is really intended, or even if it is intended, we don't need to walk around feeling offended all of the time. So lately I've been thinking more about this idea of what I call micro-benevolence. And this is an idea that I think you will find is worthwhile. It seems like a morally proper thing to do, to be nice and good to others and try to make the world a little bit better. That may seem like a self-sacrificing approach, but I'm convinced that really we end up with benefit for ourselves by behaving in such a way. So I'm convinced that these acts of what I call micro-benevolence can be good for you. Obviously, they're good for the recipient of your benevolent behaviors or attitudes. It does make the world a little bit better. Also, there is some real physiology and science behind some of this. I read a book a while back. I should probably expand my reading experience, but I so often find myself reading things on physics or biology or pharmacology, and I miss out on some of the really good novels that are out there. Anyway, what I was reading a while back was a book on telomeres. Telomeres, I think, are an interesting part of our physiology. And a telomere, you might think of it similar to the little piece of plastic that you have on the end of your shoelace that keeps your shoelace from unraveling. Turns out that your chromosomes, your DNA, benefits from having a similar structure that helps to keep them functioning well. So on the ends of your chromosomes, you will find what are called telomeres, and these are little pieces of DNA code that help to preserve the functioning of the DNA. As life goes on, those telomeres tend to shorten. There are things that can expedite or hasten their shortening, living a stressful life, an aggressive life, an angry life, a life of not really being very compassionate can serve to shorten those telomeres prematurely. And what happens then is you end up with more age-related illnesses. You seem to have a biologic age that gets ahead of your actual chronological age. So there are things you can do to combat that. Compassion, I have read in the past and talked a little bit about compassion-based meditation, where you think about being kind and compassionate and helpful to other people. I would hope that you would actually do more than just think about it. But the research that I'm thinking of as I say this has to do with just the act of meditating with compassion in mind, thinking about ways of being kind to yourself and kind to those around you and kind to the world. And it has been demonstrated that people who engage in such a practice, they have slower biologic aging. Their telomeres actually are preserved. They tend to be lengthened or at least not shortened as quickly as they might have been otherwise. So anyway, that's one example of how being benevolent or compassionate might have some direct benefits back to the person being so kind and benevolent. Other things, being kind and benevolent and exhibiting these acts of what I call micro-benevolence can help to increase the release of oxytocin, which is a hormone that helps to form bonds and also create some physiologic benefits as well. Studies have been done looking at the ventral striatum, which is part of the brain that responds to pleasurable things. And it's found that when people do pleasurable or kind things, when they're thinking of benevolence, they will show some activity in that part of the brain that responds well to pleasure. So those are some of the things that I think might be considered in this discussion to make it so it's not really a self-sacrificing thing to be kind and benevolent to others. It actually is a benefit to yourself. And like so many things in life where we think we are losing something, I think we may lose something, but we also gain something in return. I've talked about that in other settings about volunteering and other things where you feel like you're losing your time or financial resources, but you actually do gain back things that are pretty significant and worthwhile. So I guess I could go on at some length about this, but I don't really intend to do that. But I would like to just review a few things. I'd like to extend an invitation to myself and to those who might listen to this to consider being 1% more benevolent than you already are. So that's not a big deal, but those little adjustments can make life a whole lot more pleasant for you and for people around you. So think about that. Think about being 1% more benevolent. Also, I would encourage you to consider a practice called a micro pause. So rather than reacting immediately when you feel triggered or agitated, take a breath, pause for a minute. This gives you a chance to, rather than responding in an aggressive way, it gives you a chance to insert this attitude of micro-benevolence and responding in a less aggressive, more kind, more benevolent kind of a way. Another thing that you might consider is this idea of developing a benevolence bank. And to do that, you could consider several different challenges. One would be to consider 10 things you could do in less than a minute that would be evidence of micro-benevolence. In addition to that, you could think of 10 things that you might do in 5 minutes. So they might be a little more significant than what you would do in less than a minute. But just have a bank of things that you can do in mind that will help make the world a little bit better around you. I guess to wrap up, I've hopefully given you a few ideas, but I would just challenge you today or in the next 24 hours to engage in just one benevolent act that you might not have engaged in otherwise. And I'd love to hear about that. There's an opportunity for you to leave some comments here, and I'd encourage that. I'd love to hear from people who might tune into this. So if you can do that, I would appreciate it. And I look forward to continuing this conversation on whatever topic seems to be relevant. If you have something in mind that you'd like to have an old psychiatrist talk about, send me a note in the comments section, and I will try to respond to that. Also, I understand that it is helpful to promote this channel if you will subscribe and encourage your friends and associates to do so as well. I'd appreciate that. Anyway, this is Dr. Michael Smith signing off. Thank you.